This video brings an urgent message that God specifically wants you to hear. He has been trying to show you that you've been wrong about something important, but He's concerned you might resist this truth. This isn't just another spiritual correction video. It contains a revelation that could completely change your spiritual direction. God cares so deeply about your soul that He would be heartbroken if you dismiss this critical correction without understanding its importance. The message you're about to receive has been carefully arranged to reach you at this exact moment in your journey. There's a divine appointment happening right now as you watch. Don't scroll away, because what you're about to learn could transform everything about how you understand God's true will for your life. This isn't an ordinary spiritual message. It's a divine correction about something you've been getting wrong in your walk with God. The Lord has been watching your spiritual choices with loving concern, noticing both your sincere efforts and your misguided directions. Being wrong about this particular thing could mean missing God's true will and continuing down a path that leads away from His best for you. This correction marks a limited time spiritual opportunity that's opening in your life right now to get back on the right track. God cares so deeply about your spiritual growth that He would be genuinely worried if you failed to recognize this chance to course correct. That's why this message found you today. Your attention to this video isn't by chance. It's a divinely orchestrated moment designed to help you see the truth that has been right in front of you, but you might have been walking in the opposite direction. Every prayer you've prayed with a sincere heart has been heard. Every effort you've made to please God has been noticed. All the times you've tried your best to follow what you thought was His will, even when it felt difficult, have been honored. Your spiritual struggles and questions haven't gone unnoticed. Those moments when you felt like everyone else seemed to have clear direction from God but you felt confused, the Lord saw your frustration. The times when your faith felt uncertain, yet you kept trying anyway. That persistence was recognized in heaven. The courage it took to keep seeking God's will when everything around you felt unclear has been deeply valued. The spiritual confusion you've carried, sometimes too heavy to share with others, has all been acknowledged by your loving Father. The spiritual path isn't always clear, and God's true will isn't always obvious. Sometimes it requires humility to recognize when we've been wrong. God understands this challenge, which is why He's making this particular correction so clear you can't possibly miss it. The area where God says you've been wrong appears in everyday spiritual decisions, but is often overlooked because it seems too personal to question. This wrong thinking shows up in patterns of prayer, choices about relationships, or beliefs about God's character that seem right but are actually off track. It appears in the way you've been interpreting Scripture, in assumptions you've made about God's will, or in spiritual practices that feel good but aren't what God actually wants. This correction is uniquely meaningful to your specific spiritual journey, something God has personally identified that needs to change. It connects directly to the prayers you've been praying and the spiritual questions you've been asking. God chose to address this particular error because it affects everything else in your spiritual life. The window to recognize what you've been wrong about won't remain open forever. That's why God is so urgent about this correction. When you finally see it, you'll understand why He needed to get your attention so dramatically about this specific issue. When you accept this correction from God about where you've been wrong, many confusing aspects of your spiritual journey will suddenly make perfect sense. Prayers that seemed unanswered, spiritual struggles that felt endless, and directions that seemed unclear will all connect in a beautiful moment of divine clarity. God has wonderful news for you today. Your spiritual life is shifting to a higher level of truth, and important corrections are happening within and around you now. The divine has noticed your sincere heart, and now you've been chosen to receive this special correction. This moment marks something significant in your walk with God. It's a clear indication that your spiritual maturity is growing strong enough to handle being wrong. Something incredibly meaningful is unfolding in your relationship with the Lord, far deeper than you might have imagined possible. The acceptance of this correction begins a spiritual awakening that will touch every area of your life, from your prayer life to your relationships to your sense of divine purpose. There's a wave of heavenly attention surrounding you right now. You're becoming more spiritually teachable, naturally drawing divine correction into your daily experience. Accepting this truth about where you've been wrong brings a heightened awareness of God's presence in even the smallest details of your spiritual decisions. More spiritual insights will begin flowing to you than ever before. This isn't happening by chance. It's a carefully arranged blessing designed specifically for this season of your spiritual growth. Your willingness to be corrected matters more than you realize. Your humble heart inspires heaven to reveal more truth to you. Your openness to being wrong makes a difference in the spiritual atmosphere around you. This divine correction shows that God deeply values your relationship with Him, enough to risk your comfort for your growth. Each step you've taken, even when it was in the wrong direction, has led you exactly where you need to be for this divine correction. God delights when you finally accept the truth He's been trying to show you. The timing of this correction is no coincidence. It comes now because you're spiritually mature enough to handle being wrong. This precise moment has been divinely chosen because you've grown in humility and spiritual discernment. Your heart is now humble enough to accept truth that might have offended you before. Your spiritual character has developed through trials. Your relationship with God has deepened through experience. Your soul is now prepared to receive this divine correction more gracefully than ever before. All the challenges you've faced and the questions you've wrestled with have been preparation for this moment of truth. Nothing in your spiritual journey has been wasted. Every experience has shaped your ability to accept correction when it comes from God. This particular correction is connected to larger spiritual movements happening in the world right now. God is correcting similar misconceptions in others who are spiritually alert and humble enough to receive hard truths about where they've been wrong. In their spiritual understanding, if you're feeling grateful for this divine correction, please consider sending a super thanks of $5, $10, $20, or more to support our channel's mission of sharing these important spiritual truths. Your generosity helps these divine corrections reach those who desperately need to hear where they've been wrong. When you give, you participate in a sacred exchange that allows us to continue creating content that connects people with God's corrective love in these spiritually confused times. As you begin to accept this correction from God about where you've been wrong, new spiritual maturity will naturally develop in your life. This clearer understanding brings new responsibilities, not just to yourself, but to everyone God places in your path who might be making the same mistakes you were making. Don't view these responsibilities as burdens, but as sacred opportunities to participate in God's corrective work. This revelation signals it's time to step into spiritual maturity and navigate this chapter with heavenly wisdom and humility. Finding balance becomes essential during this spiritually transformative time. While embracing this correction about where you've been wrong, remember to nurture your practical faith through prayer, scripture, and community. These spiritual disciplines have shaped who you are and will continue to support you as you grow into this expanded role as someone who accepts God's corrections. God is inviting you to become more than just a receiver of correction, but a person who helps others recognize where they might be wrong too. As you become open to this divine correction about where you've been wrong, think about how you can help others who are still making the same mistakes. Your experience shows that God is constantly offering loving correction, even when we resist hearing it. Heaven witnesses every moment of spiritual humility, every acceptance of divine truth, and every choice to change direction when God shows us we're wrong. Your story of receiving this correction brings hope to people feeling spiritually stuck or wondering if God still guides His people today. Your willingness to be wrong becomes a light that helps others develop hearts humble enough to accept what God is revealing to them. This correction isn't meant to be a private humbling. It's an invitation to help others experience the same spiritual breakthrough. God often works through those who have recently accepted His corrections to help awaken others who are still resisting the truth about where they've been wrong in their spiritual understanding and choices. As you navigate this new level of spiritual humility about where you've been wrong, stay consistently teachable. God reminds you that while accepting one correction is wonderful, it's just the beginning of a lifetime of divine guidance and course corrections. Maintain the humble heart that allowed you to receive this correction in the first place. Guard against returning to spiritual pride that made you resist God's guidance in the past. Let your openness to being wrong continue to flow from genuine love for God and daily surrender to His will. With this new willingness to accept correction comes ongoing responsibility to remain humble and responsive to God's voice. Use this teachable spirit wisely to discern true divine correction from false guilt or condemnation. Not every feeling of being wrong comes from God, but He will make His genuine corrections unmistakable. Embrace this journey of spiritual humility with both grace and confidence, showing others that accepting God's corrections comes from trusting His love more than protecting our pride and self-image. Picture a future where you consistently accept God's corrections with grace and humility. Imagine divine guidance flowing more clearly through your surrendered heart, spiritual breakthroughs arriving precisely when needed, and your understanding of God's will expanding beyond anything you've experienced before. God stands with you, encouraging you to embrace this journey of spiritual teachability with complete trust in His love. This is truly your moment to experience deeper divine connection. Through accepting His truth over your assumptions, this marks the beginning of a time when your spiritual perception, wisdom, and heart will be more aligned with heaven than ever before. Accept this correction with gratitude, and remember that you're surrounded by divine love on this journey of spiritual growth. The path ahead holds countless opportunities to experience God's guidance through corrections that will become increasingly easy for your humble heart to receive. What joy awaits as you learn to trust God's truth more than your own understanding in every area of life. If this corrective message has humbled something in your spirit, please consider blessing our channel with a super thanks of $5, $10, $20, or whatever amount feels right to you. Your support creates a beautiful spiritual exchange and allows us to continue sharing these divine corrections with those who need them most. Your generosity helps fund our mission to help others accept the corrections God is revealing in these spiritually confusing times. If you're ready to acknowledge that you've been wrong and commit to accepting God's correction, type 888 in the comments below as your declaration of spiritual humility. The journey of accepting divine corrections continues beyond this revelation. As you step into new spiritual humility about where you've been wrong, stay grounded in Scripture and prayer that keep your heart soft and teachable toward God's voice. Every correction you accept with grace could be the exact example someone else has been waiting to see about receiving divine guidance. Your growing spiritual humility serves as inspiration for others wondering if God still corrects and guides His people today. Move forward with a teachable heart, an open mind, and a responsive spirit ready to change direction whenever God shows you a better way. Create opportunities for others to accept divine corrections as you enjoy the clarity coming from walking in God's actual will. The spiritual language of divine correction has always been part of how God lovingly guides those who belong to Him. By choosing to accept His corrections with humility, you join a long tradition of faithful followers who have learned to trust His wisdom more than their own understanding in every situation.